Have you ever sat in the quiet of your home, sunlight stretching across the floor, a cup of tea half sipped, and suddenly, for no clear reason, you feel it? A heaviness. Not in your knees, not in your back, but somewhere deeper. A kind of tiredness that no nap seems to fix. A silence that doesn't feel peaceful, just hollow. You've lived long. You've survived much. But still, something clings inside. Regrets that never got spoken. Habits that no longer fit. Old wounds that never healed quite right. And worst of all, that quiet little voice that whispers, maybe it's too late now. But what if it isn't? What if this exact moment, yes, this one, is not the beginning of the end, but the start of something far more beautiful? You don't need more advice. You don't need fixing. You need space. Space to breathe, to release, to let go. Because the truth is, it's not age that weighs us down. It's everything we're still carrying. So in this video, we'll walk gently through 8 lies you've been told about growing older. And more importantly, we'll release them together. You're not here to fade. You're here to become. Let's begin. Part 1. Let go of the belief that there's nothing left to learn. If the soul still breathes, then the mind can still grow. Somewhere around your late 60s or early 70s, the world subtly changes how it looks at you. People stop asking what you're learning and start assuming you've already arrived, as if wisdom is a place you retire to, like a house with no doors, no curiosity, no change. But I want to say this clearly. Just because you've lived through decades doesn't mean your growth is finished. And just because others stop expecting you to evolve doesn't mean you should stop either. You see, the belief that learning ends with youth is one of the quietest lies we carry. It disguises itself as rest, but really, it's a kind of stagnation. And like water that no longer flows, something in us begins to grow still and heavy. I remember meeting Ms. Hattie at a small community center in Vermont. She was 78, wore bright orange sneakers, and had just signed up for beginner's piano. When someone joked, "What for at your age?" She looked at them, smiled, and said, "Because every new thing I try adds another light in the dark." That stuck with me. In Buddhism, there's a story of an old monk who bowed each morning as if he'd never bowed before. He knew. The beginner doesn't lack wisdom. The beginner lives in wonder. And wonder, dear friend, is what keeps the heart awake. So ask yourself, what's something you've secretly wanted to try just because? Because the truth is, learning isn't about proving anything anymore. It's about stretching your spirit just far enough to feel alive again. And once you begin to feel that light returning, you'll start to notice something else too. That some people in your life don't want you to shine. Let's talk about that next. Part 2. Let go of toxic relationships without guilt. Not everyone who came with you is meant to stay with you. As we grow older, our hearts crave peace more than anything. Not just silence, not just solitude, but a peace that lives inside the chest, where we no longer brace ourselves every time the phone rings, or tense up before a family gathering, or shrink during a conversation that leaves us feeling invisible. And yet, how many of us continue to hold space for people who bring more harm than harmony? There's a reason. Sometimes, they're family, a sibling who's never outgrown their need to criticize, a child who speaks only in commands, never in love, a longtime friend who always seems to leave you feeling less than, and somewhere deep inside you whisper, "But I can't let go. That would make me a bad mother, a cold sister, an ungrateful friend." But what if I told you, setting boundaries isn't rejection. It's protection. Not from them, but for you. I once sat with a woman named Clara. She was 82, always put together, always kind, but her voice cracked when she told me about her son. Every Sunday she showed up, and every Sunday he tore her down, with sarcasm, judgment, and coldness. "But he's my son," she said. "What kind of mother walks away?" I looked at her and said gently, "The kind of mother who finally walks toward herself." And that week, for the first time in years, Clara sat on her porch with a cup of jasmine tea, alone, and she said, "I felt like I could breathe again." You see, Buddhism teaches holding on to anger is like grasping a hot coal with the intent of throwing it at someone else. You are the one who gets burned. Sometimes, love means letting go. Sometimes, healing begins with one word: enough. This isn't about cutting everyone off. It's about asking yourself, who truly respects my peace? And once you make that space, once you clear the emotional noise, you'll begin to see something surprising. The clutter isn't just in our relationships, it's in our homes, in our minds, in our memories. Let's walk into that space next. Part 3. Let go of clutter. Physical, emotional, and mental. Not all clutter lives in your drawers. Some of it lives in your chest. Have you ever opened an old drawer, only to be hit by a wave of feeling you couldn't explain? Maybe it was a birthday card from someone who's no longer here, a broken necklace from a love long gone, or a plastic bag of receipts, faded and curled like memories refusing to let go. It's strange, isn't it, how stuff can speak? But let's be honest, it's never just about the stuff. Behind every dusty box, every unworn jacket, every forgotten photo lies something deeper. A story, a loss, an identity you're afraid to leave behind. I once met a man named Harold who downsized from a 5-bedroom home into a small cottage after his wife passed. I asked him if he missed all the things. He smiled and said, "No. Now when I wake up, I see sunlight on the floor, not dust on old shelves." That sentence felt like poetry, because clutter in all its forms is often grief in disguise. Buddhism teaches, let go of the past, let go of the future, let go of the present, and cross over to the farther shore. Letting go doesn't mean forgetting, it means creating space, for breath, for peace, for something new, and that doesn't just apply to closets. We carry mental clutter too. Unfinished conversations, unspoken truths, and emotional clutter, like shame, guilt, or outdated versions of who we think we should be. So let me ask you this. What are you holding on to, not because it serves you, but because you fear the emptiness it would leave? Because here's the quiet truth. Your memories don't live in boxes. They live in you. And when you begin to release the physical and emotional weight, you'll start to see aging with new eyes. Not as something to resist, but something to understand. That's what we'll explore next. Part 4. Let go of the fear of aging. You didn't get old overnight, but one day you noticed, and it startled you. Maybe it happened in the mirror. You looked up and saw softer skin, sloping shoulders, and wondered, when did this become me? Not in shame, necessarily, but with a quiet reverence, like waking up in a house that's changed while you were asleep. Familiar, but different. The truth is, aging is one of the few things guaranteed to us, and yet, it's the one thing we're taught to fear from the moment we turn 30. Creams, surgeries, filters, everything tells us, don't look older, don't slow down, don't you dare fade. But Buddhism teaches the opposite. The Buddha once said, decay is inherent in all compounded things. Work out your liberation with diligence. In other words, aging is not a flaw. It's the rhythm of life itself. I once met a Zen master whose hands trembled from Parkinson's. When asked if it saddened him that he could no longer write calligraphy, he smiled and said, the brush may shake, but the ink still flows with truth. That is the power of acceptance. You see, the real tragedy isn't getting older. It's resisting getting older. Because in that resistance, we miss the beauty that only age can offer. Stillness instead of speed. Depth instead of noise. Joy in watching, not always in being seen. A woman named Joy once told me, at age 89, "I wear my wrinkles like prayer beads. Each one is a memory I survived." And perhaps that's the shift. From chasing youth to honoring survival. From asking, "How do I stay young?" to asking, "What has my age revealed that youth never could?" Because when we release the fear of aging, we begin to show up as we are, without apology, without disguise. And that's when something else comes to light. The quiet ache that someone else will come along and make us happy again. Let's talk about that next. Part 5. Let go of expecting others to make you happy. No one is coming to rescue you. But that might be the best news yet. There's a kind of quiet ache that settles into your bones after a certain age. Not the ache of illness, but of waiting. Waiting for the phone to ring. Waiting for someone to ask how you're doing. Waiting for someone, anyone, to notice that you're still here. And when no one comes, a whisper rises. Don't I matter anymore? It's one of the tenderest illusions we carry into our later years. That happiness will come from the outside, from a spouse, a child, a friend, even a grandchild who says the right thing at the right time. But the Buddha taught, no one saves us but ourselves. No one can, and no one may. We ourselves must walk the path. And those words aren't cold, they're freeing. I remember meeting Raymond, a retired postal worker. He was 78 when his wife passed, and his grown kids moved across the country. He told me, "I thought they'd check in more. I thought I'd still matter." But one day he stopped waiting. It began with a short walk, then a watercolor class, then volunteering to read stories to kids at the library. He laughed and said, "Turns out I didn't need anyone to give me permission. I just needed to say yes to myself." That's the key. Joy doesn't arrive in someone else's hands. It blooms in the moment you stop asking for it and start making it. So let me ask you, what would your days look like if you gave yourself the very attention you've been craving from others? Would you paint again? Dance? Learn Italian? Would you write that poem, walk by the lake, or simply light a candle for yourself at breakfast? Because the moment you stop waiting, you start living. And as you do, you'll find that the pressure lifts in other areas too, especially the one we rarely talk about, the endless habit of comparing ourselves to the younger version of us. Let's open that next. Part 6. Let go of comparing yourself to the young. Comparison is a thief that speaks in your own voice. It starts quietly. Maybe you see an old photo of yourself, back when your eyes sparkled differently, when your waist was smaller, your walk was quicker, when you believed the world still had more pages left to write about you. Or maybe it's watching someone younger glide by in the grocery store, head high, hips swaying, face radiant with the kind of unbothered energy you once wore like perfume. And suddenly, a thought you didn't ask for whispers, "Where did she go? The woman I used to be?" That whisper can become a wound, because comparing yourself, especially to your younger self, is the most seductive form of suffering. It wears the mask of nostalgia, but leaves the taste of loss. But here's what no one tells you. That younger version of you, the one with fewer wrinkles and more speed, she couldn't have survived what you have. She hadn't lost what you've lost. Hadn't loved with the same depth, hadn't learned the strength it takes to be still when the world expects you to keep dancing. There's a Buddhist parable about a student who envies his master's serenity. The master leads him to a still well and says, "Look into the water. What do you see?" "I see myself," the student says. And that, says the master, is what time reveals, clarity through stillness, not speed. I once met Teresa, a sharp-witted woman of 84, who told me she stopped attending her granddaughter's dance recitals, not because she didn't love her, but because she kept comparing the girls every step to the dancer she used to be. It was stealing my joy, she said. So I stepped back until I could watch again, not through loss, but through love. That's what wisdom sounds like, because the wise don't compare. They understand. They know that each stage of life holds its own kind of beauty. Speed becomes stillness. Energy becomes grace. Restlessness becomes knowing. So next time you catch yourself measuring your now by your then, ask instead, what does this version of me know that she didn't? And once that answer lands in your heart, you'll see that time hasn't taken from you. It has shaped you, but sometimes it also leaves behind bruises we try to hide, not physical ones, but regrets. Let's finally look at those next. Part 7. Let go of regret. Forgive yourself for the past. It's not the memory that hurts, it's the meaning you've attached to it. Some wounds don't leave scars on the skin. They live in the quiet corners of memory. They come to visit in the early mornings, when the house is still, or at night, when the laughter fades and you're left with only your breath and your past. The word you didn't say, the one you did, the moment you turned away when you should have stayed, the silence that lasted too long, the version of yourself you've never fully forgiven. Regret isn't always loud, it's subtle. It tucks itself behind half smiles and quiet pauses in conversation. But it's heavy. And as the years pass, that weight builds, not in your shoulders, but in your soul. But here's the gentle truth. You do not have to carry it any longer. The Buddha taught, you can search the entire universe and not find anyone more deserving of your love than yourself. Yes, even the younger self, the one who made the wrong choice, the one who acted from fear, from pride, from confusion, the one who didn't yet know better. I once met a man named Paul. He hadn't spoken to his brother in over 30 years. When I asked why, he looked down and said, because I was the one who hurt him. And I thought that meant I had no right to ask for anything more. But one day, Paul wrote a letter, not to ask for forgiveness, but to offer it to himself. He wrote, I've worn this regret long enough. I release it, not because it didn't matter, but because I want to live the rest of my life free. And that, dear friend, is what forgiveness is. It's not pretending it didn't happen. It's remembering without the poison. It's saying, I did the best I could, and now I will do better. So I ask you, what are you still punishing yourself for? What story have you repeated in your mind so many times that you forgot it could end differently? It's never too late to write a new ending. And that brings us, fittingly, to the final illusion. The one that keeps so many dreams buried under silence. The lie that says, it's too late. Let's unravel that one together next. Part 8. Let go of the lie that it's too late. If you're still breathing, the story isn't over. There's a story we've been told. Whispered, implied, reinforced in every waiting room and wrinkle cream commercial, that after a certain age, life is no longer about becoming, but about managing. That joy, curiosity, purpose, they belong to the young. That everything from here on out is about preparation for decline. But that, dear friend, is a lie. And not just a small one. It's a dangerous one. Because once we believe it, we stop looking, we stop reaching, we stop imagining. But Buddhism offers a different view. The Buddha said, each morning we are born again. What we do today is what matters most. Not what you didn't do in your 40s, not what you lost in your 50s, not the energy that faded in your 60s, but this moment, now. I once met Ruth. She picked up a paintbrush for the first time at age 91. Not to become famous, not to fill galleries, but because she saw a neighbor's watercolor and felt a spark. "It made me feel alive again," she said. 2 years later, her paintings filled the walls of her home, color where silence used to be. Then there was Jerome, 86, a widower who one day whispered to no one, "I used to love to move." He signed up for Tai Chi. He still trembled, but his spirit swayed. And May, who launched a YouTube channel at 83 to read bedtime stories to children whose grandparents were gone. She said, "I thought no one needed my voice anymore, but it turns out they did. And so did I." Here's the truth. The lotus doesn't bloom in its youth. It blooms when it's ready, from the mud in full maturity, with strength. So I ask you now, gently but clearly, what dream have you quietly buried, thinking the time has passed? What small act of aliveness have you postponed, waiting for permission? Because now is the permission, now is the invitation, now is the right time. You are not late, you are not behind, you are becoming. You've walked through 8 heavy truths, each one a burden you no longer have to carry. Not because life gets easier, but because you get lighter. So take a breath, place your hand on your heart, and whisper to yourself, "I allow myself to let go. I deserve peace." If even one part of this message touched you, write the word "free" in the comments. Not for me, but for you. And if your journey isn't done, subscribe. We're just getting started. You are not finished. You are becoming.